Let me,
Okay. As a preliminary matter, this is a public meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I, Howard Traster, am the chairman. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Eric Svan,
Here.
Mario Carnavelli,
Here.
John DiMartino. Not here. Okay, Elaine Baker.
she will not be here tonight.
Elaine will not be.
She will not be.
Okay, so it's just Mario and Eric and myself. Okay. Staff,
Yep.
when I call, please respond in the affirmative. Susan Noyes,
Present.
and do we have any anticipated speakers that need to respond now?
I do have Brian Winter, our town council, present.
Okay,
And Winter is present.
good evening. Thank
Evening.
you. Okay, good evening. Today is October 15th, 2020. It is 7:30 PM, and this is an open meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the ZBA is convening by telephone conference, video conference via Zoom, as posted on the agenda of the Zoning Board of Appeals section of the town website, identifying how the public may join. You may join us by going to http://zoom.us and enter meeting ID 893-5921-0667, followed by the password 522329, or by calling 929-205-6099, entering meeting ID 893-5921-0667, and if prompted, enter password 522329. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference. Application information has been provided to the ZBA members. Materials will be presented during the meeting. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, Howard Traster, Chairman, or Eric Svan, alternate chairman, will introduce each item on the agenda. As an attendee, we ask that you participate, keeping in mind the following. Please remember to mute your phone when you are not speaking. Please use earbuds or earphones when tablets and cell phones. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that the video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast will be captured by the recording. The applicant and/or their representative will yield the floor and allow them to present their application. If the applicant and/or their representative wish to share their screen, please indicate as such so that you can be given permissions to do so. Public comment. After the chairman has afforded the ZBA an opportunity to speak, ask questions, the chairman will then afford the public comment as follows. I will seek questions through the raised hand function. For video conference participants, this function can be accessed by clicking on the participants option listed in the menu below the photo gallery. Hover your cursor in this area if you don't see it. Window will open and display on the right. On the bottom of this participant area, you will see the list of phone video participants, and on the bottom, you will see the ability to click or on a button to raise hands. Please ensure your name is displayed. List your name, address, then your question. Telephone participants can use their phone's keypad while in the Zoom meeting to raise hand by hitting *9. I will seek to call upon questions from the public that have hit the raised hand button in the order which they are listed. Please identify your name and address and then your question or comment. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. We will continue down the list of those in the raised hand column. Should there be physical or electronic submittal of questions or concerns that were received, they will be read for the record at this time. Additional agenda items will be called upon and handled in the same manner. Okay, Eric, can you read the first hearing agenda on the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, agenda, public hearings, Ron Boland, 354th Street, continued hearing. The applicant is requesting a finding for relief from section 97-4D of the Newberry zoning bylaws, as the proposed construction will increase the height, the floor area ratio, FAR, and the lot coverage of the structure located on Plum Island Overlay District, PIOD, for the property located at Assessor's Map U04-0-61.
Okay, so I understand Mr. Volan has asked for a continuance again, Sue?
He has, and he expects to be able to present information at our next November meeting. And I have reminded him to make sure he sends that information in plenty of time ahead so the board can review it.
Okay, can we have a motion to continue the Volan hearing till the November meeting?
And that
I'll make
will
a-
be 1, 2, 3, November 19th.
November, okay.
I'll make a motion to continue the Boland hearing.
Second that motion.
Okay, Eric,
Yes.
Mario?
Yes.
I vote yes also. Motion passes. Okay. So we can move on to the next one, Eric.
Next hearing. Jennifer Ford, Seacoast Canine, 35 Downfall Road. The applicant is requesting an administrative appeal for relief from section 97-10 of the Newberry zoning bylaws for a customary home occupation, CMO, for the property located at 35 Downfall Road, Byfield, Newberry, Mass. 01922, Assessor's Map R41-0-60.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us why you've come to us then?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to start if that's okay.
Who
You want to identify
Please
yourself?
Identify yourself.
Yes, I will. Ben Timon from Timon, Davis and Duffy. I'm Jennifer Ford's attorney and appreciate the time this evening of the board, and thank you, Chairman Traister and your fellow members. And Jenny, will gladly answer questions that may arise as well. I just wanted to present the reasons that we believe that Seacoast Canine, which is Jenny's dog daycare and training business, fits really quite squarely within the customary home occupation criteria under the Newbery bylaws. The main reason that that's the case is because Jenny was able to rent a commercial facility in Salisbury beginning at the end of 2019 and shift the majority of her clients and employees and dogs to that quite large facility in Salisbury, I think on Rabbit Road, Jenny, or near Rabbit Road.
yeah,
She has been able and is proposing under a customary home occupation approval to have an operation that's significantly scaled back from where it was when she had a special permit, a 13-month special permit that was granted to her. in 2018. And I'm going to go through the different criteria and why we believe that Jenny clearly meets those criteria, which are pretty straightforward in the bylaw. Before I do that, I want to thank Building Commissioner Bennett for his review of our proposal. He did not take favorable action on it, but I understand the reasons why he's asked the board, or why he's left to the board to make this decision. And we're prepared to meet our burden as to why we do meet those criteria. A little bit about Jenny. Jenny is a lifelong Byfield resident. She, in full disclosure, she's also my niece, and like me is a graduate of Triton. Jenny grew up on Main Street in Byfield. She went to the Yellow School, which is just down the street from where she lives now at 35 Downfall Road. And after graduating from Triton, Jenny went to the University of New England and received a degree there in animal behavior, and began in college and then afterwards training in her field of dog training and care. So she worked in that field for a few years in Boxford, and in 2012 she began her company and ran it out of the Main Street Byfield house where she grew up as a customary home occupation. When she had her operation there, she met one of the main criteria of customary home occupation, which is, as you know, no more than 2 non-resident employees working at the business. But she did have clients who dropped their dogs off at the Main Street location, which resulted in more traffic there than has ever been the case at Downfall Road because of changes that she made to her business once she moved to Downfall Road, which I'll get into a little bit now. But the bottom line is that clients are not allowed to drop off or pick up dogs at her location. They weren't under the special permit, and they aren't currently. So Jenny purchased this property in 2017 and moved from Main Street to 235 Downfall Road. 35 Downfall Road is an 18-acre farm. It's very well buffered from its neighbors, and as you'll hear, Jenny's direct neighbors, who are fairly far from her because of her property being 18 acres, have never had any complaints at all about any aspect of Seacoast Canine's business, and support what she's been doing. At the farm, as Jenny, you'll hear her refer to it as the farm. It's also obviously her residence. It's her only residence. She raises goats and alpaca there as well. So there's an agricultural component to the use of the property. And Jenny, besides what other animals do you have there? I may be leaving some of them out.
A lot of chickens.
A lot of chickens. I knew that. Yeah, poultry. Yeah. So as the business began to grow, Jenny was advised that she should seek a special permit from the planning board. Again, she purchased the property in 2017. We went in front of the planning board and received a special permit that was limited in duration for 13 months and expired at the end of 2019. And as I said, that coincides roughly with when she entered into a long-term commercial lease for this facility in Salisbury. Now, under the special permit, Jenny was permitted to have up to four non-resident employees working at the property. And there were a certain number of trips that were conditions within that special permit, weekday, daily trips. And those were imposed because there were not her near neighbors, but other residents of Downfall Road who objected to what they perceived as a steep increase in traffic. I think, I don't want to belabor this point because I want to be as respectful as I can to the concerns of some of the more distant neighbors. From a traffic impact point of view, and I do a lot of land use litigation, land use work, as the board obviously does with projects and proposed businesses much, larger than what we're talking about here. It's actually a negligible amount of traffic that we were talking about, but because there are a lot of people who've lived on Downfall Road for a long time, and it's always been a quiet road, it was a change for them. But in any event, there was never any heavy degree of traffic, and there certainly isn't now. And I'm happy to defend that position and go into detail if you like. Just to turn now to the criteria under the bylaw. As the board knows, there are 5 criteria for meeting the qualifications as a customary home occupation. There are really only 2 that are, I think, going to be debated at all this evening. And the first one is, the most important one, whether the use is incidental or secondary to the primary use. The second is that there not be more than 2 people other than residents regularly employed thereon. And then the other 3, third is no offensive noise, odors, glare, unsightliness. The fourth, no public display of goods or wares. And the fifth has to do with exterior storage of materials and equipment or waste material. On the final 3, I think I can very confidently say that those aren't in dispute by anybody. Carol LaRock, for example, the animal control officer who inspects the operation there, has always given it high marks. Martha Taylor, I've heard her say multiple times that she's never heard anyone raise any issues with regard to any of those types of criteria in terms of odor, noise, unsightliness, et cetera. And again, it's a very well buffered site, 18 acres. Agricultural uses are as of right as they are through most of Newbery, given that most of Newbery is in the RAG zoning district. Now, on the other criteria that I think will probably be the focus for this evening, and I'm obviously happy to answer whatever questions the board has, but under the proposed plan going forward, and given that most of the business has been shifted to Salisbury, this operation will very, very easily, in my view, meet any objective view of what a secondary incidental use is, and here's why. The doggy daycare and training activities that occur at the site and that we propose continue to occur under a CHO designation are, first of all, 5 days a week, not weekends. So we're talking about 5 days, and they're 5 hours per day. So Jenny's 2 non-resident employees would be coming to the site roughly at 9:30 in the morning with the dogs that they pick up from clients in the greater Newbury and Newburyport area, and then leaving together at 2:30. So the employees come to the site with the dogs, they stay there for 5 hours, and then they leave. They bring the dogs, back to the various clients. So we're talking about 25 hours a week. And, while this isn't a straight numerical formula that the board would be looking at, that's 15% of the hours in a week. So 25 hours a week as compared with 168 hours in a week. And the rest of the time, this is Jenny's residence, not just for Jenny, but for her brother, Christian. They live there full time. They have no other, this is their primary and only residence. And as I mentioned, there's also a fairly vibrant agricultural use going on with the raising of some of the animals that we mentioned, which is as of right. And there are other agricultural uses that Jenny doesn't do that would also be as of right if she chose to do so, including things like a feed store and things that would create much more traffic than anything we're talking about. So those are the primary reasons why, under this scaled back operation, the doggy daycare piece of what's going on at the property, truly is incidental and secondary to its primary uses, which are residential and agricultural. And then with regard to the second criterion, as I mentioned, there would only be 2 non-resident employees. So Jenny owns the business. She's, built this business from the ground up into something very successful in a relatively short period of time that supports a lot of Byfield, Newbery residents, as well as other residents of Newburyport, Salisbury, and Rowley and other areas. So she's there, and she's obviously closely involved in all aspects of the business. Her brother Christian works for the business. So they are there as residents doing the work that they do. And, and like any residents of those roads, of the neighborhood, rather, Downfall, Lenway, and Johnson Lane, they come and go and have very active, lives, and are doing many, many other things besides working for Seacoast. And then the other two employees, non-resident employees, would be the ones who would be permitted under that second prong of the customary home occupation. So those really are the primary reasons why we feel that this fits squarely within criteria. I would also say that, in terms of what's customary as a business, there are, this is a sector that has grown a lot. I mean, when I was growing up, I don't recall there being doggy daycare or training facilities. It's obviously, become a very popular and successful line of business. And there are other such businesses in Newbery, some that are large enough and full-time enough where they do need special permits, and others that, have received merely a CHO designation. We had pulled some records, business certificates last year, and I know there's, Lisa's Pet Service on Moulton Street and Fish and Fur on Grove Street are just two examples of business certificates that were issued to customary home occupations that, may not have the same model as Jenny, but that, would fit within the 5 criteria as Jenny's business does. So I think I've spoken for long enough. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. I'm happy to address any of the concerns that neighbors or others have, and obviously members of the board. And Jenny's also, here and prepared to answer anyone's questions, beginning with the boards. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Eric, you have questions, Mr. Timon?
Sure. So Jenny owns the property, and her brother lives on the property as well. Do they live in the same house, or is there other structures on the property?
They live in the same house, but Jenny, why don't you give an outline of the other structures?
There is only one house living structure, but we have 2 outbuildings. One is a barn we use for the dogs in bad weather. And then one was a garage converted into an office. So we use that as well on rainy days, but mostly just for storage and things like that.
Okay. And you said the property was 18 acres?
Yes.
Okay. And originally for the Main Street business, can you clarify, did you seek a special permit for the business on Main Street?
No, we were just the customary home occupation at that time.
And then when you moved to Downfall Road, you sought a special permit?
We began the process after, I'd say 6 months here, when we hit the point that I wanted more than 2 non-resident employees is when we sought the special permit.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, that's it at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, Mario?
Just a few questions. What conditions were in the original permit?
So,
special permit?
in the special permit?
Yeah.
Right. So I have that here. Well, there was a limitation as to the number of non-resident employees to 4. And there was also a total number of weekly trips that were permitted. And I have those here. Jenny, you may remember off the top of your head, but I have the permit here.
280 is the number in my head, but that may not necessarily be true.
Let's see. I believe I think it was 8 per day because it was consistent with the number of non-resident employees. Yes, here we, let's see. So it set the hours of business between 9 and 3, which, as I mentioned, was always consistent and remains consistent with the operation. Here we go. There'll be no more than 60 one-way vehicle trips, 30 round trips per week total, and no more than 12 one-way trips, 6 round trips per day. So yes, it was limited to 60 trips per week, and also limited to weekdays. So that was the I would say the most significant and restrictive of the conditions that were imposed under the special permit.
Anything else? That was it?
Thank you.
No, I was just saying, that was it for the special
Oh, I
permit?
beg your pardon. Well, there were other conditions such as that, Jenny was allowed an annual open house. And so while clients were prohibited from coming down to Downfall Road, which is something, again, that was consistent with Jenny's business model and that she offered at the time, she was permitted an annual open house so that her clients could come and, see the farm and where their dogs were being trained. She was also required to have her employees sign a code of conduct that stated that, they wouldn't speed. They would, obey all, obviously all traffic laws, but also would, essentially adhere to a code of conduct consistent with being a good neighbor. In order to help, this became a little bit of perhaps difficult thing to evaluate, but in order to help assess whether the car count limit was being met, the employees' cars were required to have decals. That changed in consultation with the chairman of the planning board and with Martha Taylor. We ended up changing that to the cars putting their hazard lights on because some of the decals kept flying off the cars on the highway. And so instead, cars put their flashers on, and also, the speed limit. Jenny, what is the speed limit on Downfall?
There is a sign that says 20 miles an hour now. There
Right.
wasn't a sign initially.
Right. So you basically had cars, Mr. Cannavale, for Jenny's employees, would have their hazards on and going under 20 miles an hour. So they, became easier to be able to tell what was a business trip. Now, one of the points of confusion, frankly, and it may come up tonight, but I really do think that this is not anything that should be laid at Jenny's feet, is that some of the neighbors who've been concerned about the project, became very active car counters, but were regularly counting, non-business trips. And so, there was one neighbor, and you may hear from her this evening, who complained to the planning board that, well, I saw Jenny leaving her driveway this morning before 8:30, and isn't that a violation? Well, it's not, because Jenny lives there and Jenny can come and go as often as she needs to, and so can Christian. And like most normal people in a neighborhood, they have family and friends that come over, and others, who are there for reasons having nothing to do with her business, a house cleaner or whatever. So that did become, something that was a little bit challenging, I think, for the planning board to evaluate. But we tried different ways to make that easier. Sometimes without success for some of the neighbors who, in my view, have been unreasonable about this situation. But in any event, I've probably carried on more than I need to on that particular condition. As far as other conditions, I'm looking at them now. There were things like fencing that had to be approved by the animal control officer, which occurred. I mentioned the magnets on the vehicles. Some of these conditions, again, in my experience, and perhaps in your experience, pretty onerous for what we're talking about here, but it was a nod to the neighbors. So Jenny had to file a list with the Newbery Police Department and the zoning enforcement officer with all of the make, models, and license plate numbers of each of her employees. Seemed a little heavy-handed to me, frankly, but we did it. So that was another condition. I think
And,
I've covered all the major ones.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So why did she not renew the permit at the end of 2019?
Right.
And in the same vein, what was the builder's inspector's reason for denying the special permit?
Right. So as far as not obtaining the special permit, we did seek renewal. The initial one was for 13 months, which again, was a little bit out of the ordinary, but I think because there was concern over some of the neighbors' complaints, we ended up withdrawing that application when it became clear that the special permit was unlikely to be renewed. But as I mentioned, that happened to coincide with the opening of the commercial space in Salisbury. Jenny had signed the lease already for Salisbury at the time of that last planning board hearing and had begun, some of that transition. But since that time, and obviously coronavirus has intervened in everyone's lives, and the business was closed for a couple of months and then has slowly reopened. There's much more activity now at the Salisbury facility. And so Jenny can quite comfortably comply now with the 2 non-resident employees only, which in and of itself, of course, makes the use more incidental and secondary than it had been in the past. Oh, and I'm sorry, as far as the building commissioner Burnett's letter, the relevant part of it is it's a short 3-paragraph letter dated July 27. He said, "I'm in receipt of your attorney's letter claiming that your customary home occupation, but it is my interpretation as the zoning administrator that the special permit will be required as stated in the table of use regulations and is not waived by claiming a customary home occupation. You're welcome to appeal my interpretation to the ZBA." And I spoke with Mr. Burnett afterwards, and I think I'm not putting words in his mouth. He explained that he wasn't convinced that that what we had presented to him met the secondary or incidental use piece, but said, take it to the ZBA and they can give their view. So that's where we are.
That's all I have, Howard.
Okay,
Did we want Mr. Winter, our town council, Brian Winter, to give us any further information?
well, he can, and then I've got a couple of questions, but he can speak now.
Well, thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman, and for the people watching and participating virtually, some of whom have seen me already. My name's Brian Winter from Town Council's office. I don't think it would necessarily be appropriate as counsel for me to provide my own sort of rendition of the background. You've heard a synopsis of it. It's valuable in terms of the context in which this case arises, but I think as you've seen from your building official's determination and the substance of the appeal, really the question turns upon some interpretations of different provisions of your zoning bylaws. So I think that's where I'll be the most valuable to you in terms of helping you through that analysis and providing some parameters and guidance for that. I certainly can't provide any factual context since I'm not a witness to anything, but I think the procedural history was fairly summarized, and I believe you either have or could have available a copy of the special permit decision if you want to look at that more closely. There were 21 conditions that were attached to it, and I think the most relevant ones were highlighted by Attorney Time and fairly, but it's a detailed 10-page decision that recites a lot of the factual background and questions you had about the operation as it existed at that time. Now things have changed since then, so you've heard some testimony as to how they've changed, and you're certainly welcome to probe on any of those factual issues if you see fit to. But as your deliberations go on, and if you have questions on more the legal analysis and legal questions, I'm happy to weigh in on those.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Timerman or Jenny, I have a couple of questions. Regarding your statement that the business has been scaled back, other than saying that there's only 2 employees, how much has the traffic been scaled back? Are there less dogs currently in the at the Downfall business? You never really gave any specifics of what downsizing meant.
This might be out of order of your questions, but we closed for 2 months due to COVID-19, although we are considered an essential business. As a small business, we run with a very small team. So I would say at this point, we are not, in terms of number of dogs, where we were prior to closing. We began reopening 3 days a week and reopened back to 5 days a week. So we currently are still, I would guess, at 80% in terms of number of staff and number of dogs to what we were doing before. And then we have a 4,200 square foot indoor outdoor facility now in Salisbury. So,
Right, well, I'm asking specifically about Downfall Road, not the total amount of your business, because we're not really, it doesn't matter how many dogs or how many people are working in Salisbury. So
Right.
specifically, how many dogs do you have on site typically?
anywhere from 20 to 30.
And did I understand that your 2 employees brought dogs in the morning and brought them home at night, and no other dogs or the employees travel on the road? Is that
That would be our plan, yeah.
okay? So according to that, if you have 20 dogs, so that means each employee is bringing 10 a day?
Well, we'd be looking for 2 non-resident employees.
Yep.
And so my brother and I, as residents, would also be employees.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but, and I may be a little confused just reading the special permit that you had before, where they limited trips. It was trips for your non-resident employees.
Yeah,
correct? Okay,
right.
so when you're saying now that your non-resident employees pick up the dogs,
hmm
so they each pick up 10 to 15 a day and bring them to the site?
They would, in addition to my brother and I.
Okay, all right. Okay.
But we do have 2 Suburbans, and so they can fit 12 dogs in individual crates.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there any plan to address whatever neighbors that think that there's too much traffic or the cars are going too fast? Is there a plan to mitigate that other than just saying there's only 2 trips in and then possibly trips by you and your brother?
So part of our special permit agreement, which we just continued doing, is having employees sign a code of conduct for their driving. And part of their agreement is that any breaches in that code of conduct, I guess, have consequences. And so I would say maybe 2 weeks ago, Amanda called my office manager. Our neighbors all have my personal cell phone, but they have our business line. And usually choose to use that.
Just as a clarification, sorry, Jen, Amanda's a neighbor, correct?
Yes, sorry. Reporting poor driving. And so that employee, although they were clocked out at the time, was still written up. We have a 2-strike policy essentially. And part of what they agree to is if there's a second strike, their wages are decreased for a probationary period. So there's some incentive for the employees to drive safely, even when I'm not physically seeing them drive.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So we can take questions from the public if we have any raised hands.
Okay, hold on, Amanda. All right.
Hello. Hi, sorry. I don't know if I pushed the right button to unmute.
You
Can you
should
hear
be
me?
unmuted now, Amanda.
Okay, can you hear me? No. Ah,
You're very echoey.
is that better?
A little bit, but you're still a little bit echoey. So why don't you move forward and we'll see what we can make of it.
All right, can you hear me? Sorry. So it was actually last Thursday that I had to call. I have an autistic son, so he's in school full time right now. So I was at the bus stop past 3 p.m. and one of her drivers blew through the stop sign at the bus stop for my children. I called, I got a phone call back. They said that there'd be repercussions. I understand that. Then it was probably 2 months ago on a Saturday. There was an incident where I was outside playing with my children and 6 cars, all full with dogs. Jenny was in the line of cars. They had left and one car flew up the road. It was a red SUV. I called, somebody called me back. Her office manager called me back. I explained the situation. She did not deny that it was a business situation that was going on at that point in time. She said, okay, I understand that an employee, I will talk to them. That's a Saturday. That is not, my kids shouldn't have to worry about the doggy daycare. Now, looking at the different things that were said, there were a couple different things to where Mr. Timon quoted one of the guidelines of the special permit that's still supposed to be followed right now. That's how Jenny's able to continue a business right now. is the agreement that she follows the special permit that was granted. Her cars have not had their flashers on, have not had signs on their cars in months since this happened back when it got denied, or she withdrew her thing. The one that Mr. Timon read, talking about trips on the road, he politely stopped reading when it stated a per day total by non-residents and or / residents employees to and from the property while conducting the 9 to 3 weekday business. So that includes Jenny and her brother. Unfortunately, I didn't make these rules, but Jenny agreed to follow these rules. And on many occasions, she's stated that that doesn't her or her brother. Unfortunately, it does. Again, not my rules, that was by the special permit. Then when I was looking at the show guidelines, it states that only one commercial vehicle for the business can be on property and used. She already stated that she has 2 Suburbans that are used for the business. She just stated that she has 2. She also stated that her employees come in the morning with dogs and leave with dogs. Unfortunately, last Thursday, when that incident happened with the stop,
So I can't hear anything.
Yeah, it looks like she just dropped off, Mr. Chairman.
Wonder if it would be better if she called in.
Yeah. Okay, so, I mean, I think we've picked up most of what she said. If she reconnects, we can ask her to,
Maybe members out here calling might make it clearer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I did hear quite a bit of it, but I did miss a few things.
yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see that, let me just check the next page, hold on. I don't see that she's rejoined yet, but we do have another raised hand if you want to move on to that.
Yeah, we might as well move forward and if she reconnects, bring her to the front of the line.
Yep. Okay, Elizabeth Woodworth, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, I'm Avery Woodworth, 19 Downfall. Elizabeth's my wife, 19 Downfall also. Amanda is the neighbor directly across from the doggy daycare, so she sees everything that happens. We live about halfway down the street, and this has been an ongoing problem for going on 3 years now. They've had their special, let me rewrote. They've had their permit, their applications with the building department rejected twice by 2 different inspectors because it doesn't meet the customary home occupation. They have never, ever lived by the rules of the special permit. And we had issues with the planning board when we said, you can't give this special permit because of who is going to enforce it. And they said, oh, there's all kinds of recourses. There are no recourses. It falls upon the neighbors to enforce the amount of traffic. They well exceed their 6 round trips constantly. I hardly believe they shut down for 2 months because of COVID. I'd say they may be shut down for a month, and that would be a stretch. They run on weekends. They go pretty much 8 o'clock to anywhere from 2:30 to 4 o'clock, depending on what happens. They never have 12 dogs in a Suburban, and you couldn't put 12 crates in a Suburban. I have a Suburban. It would not work. All right. These people thought they could come down here and bully us because they thought Byfield was a sleepy little town. This is a very quiet little street. It always has been. If you look at the turnover for the number of houses here, people don't move because they like it so much. This isn't Main Street. It isn't Central Street. It's not Orchard Street. It's not Route 1. It's a tiny little narrow dead end street that should not have this kind of traffic. We've never had a complaint with the number of dogs or the facility down there. I have no problem with that. The problem is the traffic and the not so courteous employees who, after the special permit was not renewed, became even more belligerent and rude in their driving habits. So honestly, there's a reason this has been denied multiple times. I don't see how it possibly falls into the customary home occupation. And that's sort of it for now. I'll have something else again, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
Okay. Looks like you brought Amanda to your house. So can you
Yeah,
connect her, please?
All right, we're unmuted.
okay.
I apologize for that. I just drove down.
It's okay, we can actually hear you clearly now.
Byfield has great service. Gotta love living in Byfield. So, a couple things, again, I'm not too sure what you guys heard. There are just a couple things that kind of listening to Mr. Timon's talk and how he was reading. So right now they're supposed to be going on their special permit that was granted 2 years ago is what I got explained. So that's how they're able to continue business without being approved for a CHO or a special permit. Now their special permit, as they stated, should have their employees having signs on their cars or having their hazards. I haven't seen that in months, since probably December. Unfortunately, we all know their vehicles, but having them drive up and down these roads every day, they don't have their hazards on. They aren't following that very, very simple thing that needs to be followed. Then when Mr. Timon was reading number 5 to you folks about the no more than 60 one-way vehicle trips, meaning 30 round trips per week total, and no more than 12 one-way vehicle trips, 6 round trips per day. Now, that's where he stopped reading. And right after that, it states by non-residents and or resident employees to and from the property while conducting the 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. weekday business operations. So that was put in by the special permit. That unfortunately includes him, Chris, her brother, and Jenny. So that's when they leave to go pick up dogs, when they come home. They also, most of the time, and we've had this discussion in the special permits, they leave for lunch. He can't deny them lunch. Of course not. They're employees. Everybody needs a lunch. But the rules of the special permit state that they unfortunately aren't allowed those trips a day. Right now, she has an employee that comes down first thing in the morning to pick up the black SUV, leaves to go pick up dogs, comes back to bring the dogs to the daycare. Then she leaves in the SUV, comes back in the SUV, leaves in her vehicle. So just as Jenny told you about 2 weeks ago, it was actually last Thursday. I brought my kids to the bus stop with me. So they get out of school at 3 o'clock. About 3:05, we left the house. We passed the black SUV coming down the road. So this is after 3 p.m. We drive down. Then her employee in her own vehicle leaves and goes straight through the stop sign at the end of the road. My 2 children are outside playing at the bus stop. My son is about to come off the bus, who's on the autism spectrum. He's in school full time. He's about to come off the bus. I beat my horn. This lady looks at me like I'm crazy. Again, I called. The office manager said that something would be done. That's fine. But this is an instance that children are outside playing and they aren't following. That's not even the speed limit. That's a stop sign. There are issues with a CHO. I was reading today that a CHO can only have one vehicle, commercial vehicle, for the CHO. Well, we just heard Jenny state that she does have 2 black SUVs, Suburbans, that are for the business, that other employees drive and things like that. So that right there wouldn't be a CHO. I do know if you look at the zoning board things, it says on page 4, I believe, it's number 1, doggy daycares need to have a special permit to be able to have in Byfield, or Newbery, I should say. There are also things along the lines of when you asked Mr. Timon why they voted, or we had like a preliminary vote, I guess you could say. It was we were trying to see what they were gonna say. There are 5 criteria that a special permit needs to have, and a few of them could not be met. And the lawyer that was there even stated, I don't know how you guys can pass it if it is obnoxious to neighbors, obnoxious to the neighboring properties, or will affect abutting or nearby properties by increasing traffic on the street. Well, it does. I live at the end of a dead-end road. There's only 3 houses past me. There would be not very many vehicles that pass me if the vehicles weren't going down. I do know that she stated that customers and the dog parents aren't able to go down there. But I was at the soccer field with my son and he asked me where I lived. I said, oh, Downfall Road. He goes, oh, that awesome Seacoast Canine. I said, yeah, that's at the end of the road of mine. He goes, oh, before I signed my dog up, I drove down there a few times just to check it out. So unfortunately, that's something that she can't control. She can tell people not to drive by. If I was to put my child in daycare, I would drive by a few times. I cannot imagine somebody paying for their dog to be babysat and not drive by to see they're being offered this farm. So let's see what the farm looks like. And unfortunately, those people don't realize that I have 3 children, that there's a blind child on a different road that walks by himself on the roads, or that there's other people that walk on the roads on a normal basis. So unfortunately, and that's nothing against Jenny, she has no control over these people that are interested in her business. I believe that that's it for now. Again, just as Avery, I'm sure that something will come up. But yeah, that's it. And I appreciate your guys' time listening to me twice. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sue, who else do we have?
We have Rebecca Mountain. I'm going to ask her to unmute.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I live on 9 Larkin Road in Byfield. And I've lived here for, gosh, I can never remember how old I am. 33 years, I think. Jenny, are we 33? I don't know. Anyway, so I've known Jenny my entire life. We went to NES together and the yellow school, as was mentioned previously. And we have lived here our entire lives, as was also mentioned earlier. So I have to say, I super resent the suggestion that Jenny has come in here to pull one over on Byfield, because again, we've been here our whole lives. So that's the first thing. Second of all, living on Larkin Road, also now a dead end street. And so I know this has been litigated before in these meetings that I've also attended, but there's been a super increase in traffic on Larkin Road too over the last just 3 years, I would say. And Jenny's business is not on Larkin Road, interestingly. So there's just been an increase in traffic in Byfield as a result of people having more people living in the household. And as has been mentioned in previous meetings, there's now multiple generations living in the houses on Downfall Road and on Johnson Lane, which is the adjoining street. So there's a lot more people in that area than there used to be. And I imagine now, especially with the pandemic, a lot of people have moved back home. There are a lot more people driving around our town who are home who wouldn't be there normally. And I've seen that on Larkin Road. And I'm sure that everyone has also experienced that on Downfall Road. I actually, for the first time since February, got to see Jenny in person for a socially distant hangout this past weekend, masked with a fire pit. And I got tailgated down Downfall Road by someone from Johnson Lane. So there have been traffic problems on that road that have nothing to do with Jenny's business. And as for the mention that she got denied her permit, that because she couldn't meet the requirements, she couldn't meet those requirements because of her neighbors and not the ones who are immediately next to her, because of the people down the road who resent having a successful woman run a business in this town that means so much to all of us, including me as a dog owner. And that also is horrible that someone who grew up here, who went through the Triton school system, has built something so incredible, and some just sad people down the road are trying to pull it down, who like letting their kids play in the middle of the road. And I'm sorry, but that's just, I've been to these meetings over and over again. And I think that instead of trying to push her out of our town, where she is, you know, spending her tax money and supporting our town and making it better and building this wonderful business, we should be trying to support her. And I think that she clearly meets the requirements of this permit, if not the special permit that she should have been granted before. And to say that she doesn't meet them for any other reason than because people just don't like the fact that there is someone more successful than them down the road, I think is just sad. And as even Amanda said herself, people love her business. They tell her they love her business at her kid's soccer match. And I think that's what we should really be looking at here, what her business adds to this town, what her immediate neighbors think, and they fully support her. And I think that's what matters. So thank you. And I'm sorry that I am angry about this.
Thank you. So what do we have now?
I have a Matthew Miller.
Hi, I'm Matthew Miller. I've worked for Jenny for close to 4 or 5 years now. And some of the things I've heard tonight are frankly ridiculous. We were closed from March. We were closed for probably closer to 3 months than 2 months. I know because I work there. I'm the manager. I manage the staff. I'm the one who has to tell them that they can't go to work because we're closed. And for someone to sit there and say that, hey, you're actually been working is very, very insulting. I apologize. Sorry. I take the care and well-being of my staff very seriously. Jenny has done so much to, make my life harder. So we're being nicer to the staff, that we're able to we're being more respectful to the neighbors of Downfall Road. We've done so much. We're always driving, the sign's 20, we're driving 15. We are always stopping and pulling across when we see people. I see people walking. We're waving. The being portrayed as these bullies coming in is ridiculous. We've removed staff from the Byfield location because of them violating that code of ethics. We've tried very hard to be the best neighbors that we can be. And it just seems like no matter what we've done, no matter how much we have capitulated, it's never been enough. So we are doing so much to be good neighbors, because the thing, as someone from Newburyport, the only thing I've heard about Byfield is how much of a close-knit, tight community it is. And it's disappointing that hasn't been the reception from Downfall Road at all. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to Jesse Allen.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. So I am not an employee of Jenny's. However, I do share farm animals with her. I have been there they've probably been there for almost 2 years now, going on 2 years. I have been chased. I have been yelled at. I've had my license plate taken down so many times. I have a 8-year-old daughter who has heard some very special language from the neighbors there. I slow down when they're walking their dogs. I pull over. They are very rude, disrespectful. I live in Amesbury. I've never met people even here that are half as rude as the people on that road. And it's not all of them. I know a few of the neighbors because they're very friendly, but further down, closer to the main street, they are very ugly and mean. And my daughter has picked up some very colorful language from things that they're screaming at us when we're driving. And it's not okay. They're very aggressive. I see that they don't want her to be there. I can tell by their body language, by, things that they're doing, things that are being thrown, kicked as we're going by. I also am not there during business hours at all. So I'm not ever there before 9 o'clock because I'm at work. But after, well after 3 o'clock, because that's the time I get out, I go and I check on my animals and, catch up and see how Jenny's doing. I do the medical care for our animals minus emergency situations. So I'm down that way quite a lot. But there is a lot of stuff from the neighbors and things that the neighbors are saying that are just not true. And I don't know how they can say those things when they are actually talking about themselves. The bullying is happening from the neighbors. It's just, I don't know. I've never been treated like that by anyone, and they are very aggressive.
Okay.
I guess that's all I have. It's just very disappointing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have Ruth forward. I'm going to ask to unmute you, Ruth.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hello. I want to thank the board tonight for listening to this. I've been a party to many of these meetings, and as the mother of Jenny, I have to tell you it's been very, very upsetting. Here is a young woman who is the pillar of the community. You can't say one bad thing about, even though she's my daughter, I'm telling you right now, what Becky's saying, what Jesse's saying, she is the salt of the earth. To hear people talk the way they do, so unloving, talk about, I thought people were supposed to love your neighbor. I see these signs up and down Downfall Road about, love is love and all this. They're a bunch of hypocrites. And I'm absolutely ashamed of what has been going on. And I know Jenny has really wanted to put her best foot forward and always has. And she runs a very successful business. And I agree, there's a lot of jealousy going on there. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have a Fallon Wall.
Hi, my name is Fallon Wall. Like several other people here, I'm a Triton graduate, and I recently moved back into the area during the pandemic. One of the reasons I moved back to the North Shore area was because I wanted to get that kind of close-knit, tight-knit community feel that I grew up with and respected. And I've also been employed since I moved back until Jenny reached out and said, hey, I have an opening. Would you like to be employed? And one of the first things that Matt, my manager, told me was, when we go down Downfall Road, you do not go above 20 miles per hour, and we drive courteously, slowly, and respectfully to be respectful of the neighbors. And while I've driven down, when I've gone to the farm, not once have I seen another car on the road, which it would be unexpected in a bustling area, but I've never encountered anybody else. And I think part of the discussion from the community has really gotten away from the purpose of the meeting tonight, which is does Jenny's company, can it meet the requirements of the CHO? And by anything that Mr. Timon has outlined, she absolutely can meet those requirements. And I think one of the mentions of Amanda, the neighbor, was having the business, the commercial vehicle. She has another property where she can have a second vehicle as opposed to the residency. So I want to remind the council staff and the zoning board members that despite the allegations that are being presented, we need to be truthful to what's being targeted at this meeting, which is, can Jenny's business meet the requirements of a CHO as opposed to the special permit? And I believe she firmly can, having been an employee for a few months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, while we have a little pause here, Chairman, I just wanted to, for the record, I did share it with all of the board, the letters that we received from a Kathleen Cashton of 8 Lenway Road. That was an objection of the business. I'm just going to state for against because some of these are quite lengthy. And certainly if the applicant wants a copy, I'm happy to share it. We also received a letter from a Joanne Hogan objecting the application, and also from the Woodworths of Downfall Road objecting the application.
Okay, do we have anybody else looking to speak? So
We have a Karen Harris. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
I'm unmuted, but I can't, okay. Sorry about that. I actually am a resident of Lenway Road, and mainly I just wanted to contribute that I was at all of the other meetings, and certainly no one negates the integrity of Jenny and her business and the successfulness of her business. And I've said this before. We want to celebrate her success, but the question that we all have and are concerned about is a safety issue in the neighborhood that's been addressed repeatedly for the children and the people of our neighborhood, and that we want to maintain our safety. If we can be assured that there's going to be measures to keep that and keep moving forward to protecting our neighbors, our greatest investment, our homes, where we've lived, where we have raised families, we want to make sure that that continues or is not harmed in any way. The people that are speaking, I'm curious to know if they have their own homes, that they have established themselves, if they have put their life's worth into their home and their residence, and choosing a neighborhood that is safe for their families because they're dead-end streets, there's no through traffic. It's not a question of having a business, it's the location of being on a dead-end street where we're trying to maintain the safety of our families. So that's pretty much my thought on it, and just want everybody to keep that in mind as well, that this isn't just about Jenny's business, it's about the integrity of our neighborhood and the safety of our neighbors. So thank you.
you,
Okay, it looks like Ben Timon would like to speak.
Mr. Timon?
Thank you, Ms. Noyes and Chairman Traster. Would it be okay if I just addressed a few of the points that have been made?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things in the special permit that were brought up. So finding number 9, or condition number 9 rather, of the special permit said that there shall be no more than four employees on the property at any one time, exclusive of those who live there, which at the time was 2. So I apologize because I don't recall the neighbor's last name, but the neighbor who spoke and talked about the condition that spoke of 60 round trips and that those were confined to non-resident and resident employees. That's true. However, because there were 4 non-resident employees who were permitted under the special permit to come to the property, those were the people who tended to do so during that period of time. So, that's clear in the special permit that there were 4 non-residents who were allowed to do those runs for clients, and those were the ones who tended to do them. There also were allowed up to 40 dogs, which I think maybe had come up already, but I wanted to make sure that that was known to the board. And so, what Jenny's proposing now is, is scaled back because, as you heard her say, they're averaging currently between 20 and 30. And I think that, certainly if there were 20 as an average, and I don't know that there's been a count done, that would be, as you can see, quite a reduction from what was permitted under the special permit. And then obviously the CHO designation limits non-resident employees to 2, whereas under the special permit there had been 4. Now, it's also true that the special permit, as I mentioned in my initial discussion, expired. But it's not the case, as Mr. Woodworth has said, that this has been denied multiple times by building commissioners. So what occurred is that we, as I mentioned, we withdrew the special permit renewal application because we could see that we weren't going to achieve 4 out of 5 planning board votes because, as you know, there's a supermajority required for any special permit. We made it clear then, and actually, had already set up a meeting at that time with interim building commissioner Sinibaldi. We made our case on the customary home occupation to Mr. Sinibaldi in a meeting that we had in person with him and with Martha Taylor at the beginning of 2020. And then the world changed in March. Mr. Sinibaldi did not issue any decision. And then building commissioner Bennett came in and we discussed it with him, and he issued the decision that he did in July. So the only decision denying our request was by Mr. Bennett. And as I said, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, and certainly I've seen this in many towns where a building commissioner may very well wish to have another opinion and kick it to a ZBA of 3 members to make a call. So I did want to point those things out. I also, just as a matter of sort of fundamental fairness with regard to customary home occupations, most of Newbery, I grew up in Byfield, so I know this from personal experience, almost the entirety of the town is the RAG zoning district. And any type of business, so in the table of uses in the bylaws, professional and business offices are only allowed by special permit in the RAG district. And so you have professional and business offices that do meet the CHO requirement on this very street. Mrs. Woodworth herself has a candle and lotion business certificate that would not be permitted in the district because it's a professional and business office, but for a CHO designation. And evidently she meets that and is able to operate that business. The Woodworths also for several years had a summer pony training camp that they ran from their home. So there are plenty of businesses that meet the CHO requirement. And all we're asking is that, kind of stripping away what obviously has been some bad blood and some history here, to look at the criteria and to, we hope support this proposal, which is intended to lessen even further activities on the street in a way that we hope will perhaps ease some of the tensions that have accrued over the past few years. I would also just finally add that certainly everything that others have said about Jenny is absolutely true. She's the most conscientious young person that I've come across in a long time. She runs a very tight ship, and her employees are loyal to her because she holds them accountable and rewards them for good performance and punishes them for bad performance. She is a very responsible, accountable success story within Byfield. So I wanted to make those points in response to things other people said. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions that might still be out there. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have anybody else?
We do have another question by Elizabeth Woodworth.
Okay.
Hold on a sec.
Oh.
All right. Can you hear me all right? It's Avery, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be quick. I take offense at the fact that they're saying we're slandering Jenny and questioning her character. I've been stated on record multiple times at planning board meetings where I have no axe to grind with Jenny. It's the business, it's the size of the business, it's the traffic. That's the concern. I don't care, honestly, I don't care if she had 50 dogs down there. As long as she could get them down there in the 12 trips under the special permit, we wouldn't have had a problem. She could never do that. She was always over the traffic count. She still is over the traffic count. Jess, I'm sorry if you've had some people yell at you. I don't know who those people are because I can definitely swear that I've never yelled at you. So that I'm unhappy about because this neighborhood is a fantastic neighborhood. I'm sorry you never felt welcome, Jenny, but you never felt welcome, Jenny, because you came in here like a steamroller with a ton of traffic, not playing by the rules, and the neighborhood galvanized against you because of that. Had you actually played by the rules under the special permit, everything would have been fine and dandy. We understand there is change. We were willing to live with that. As far as Larkin Road goes, no idea what happens on Larkin Road, but the traffic here doesn't really change because there really aren't that many people that have moved home. Those that have moved home are super respectful of the traffic. The other thing is that Mr. Timon, once again, doesn't necessarily have his facts correct. The pony camp that Elizabeth had was a very, very, very small scale summer camp that did not offer horseback riding lessons. It was an art camp and a basically animal husbandry camp where they learned how animals were treated properly. She had a proper business certificate. She went before the selectmen for that certificate. She closed the business when the Mass state laws required a camp, quote unquote, to have a full-time nurse, and it wasn't feasible. She had between 4 to 5, maybe 6 kids at a time. It ran for 2 months during the summer. End of story. It was not a burden. We had no complaints, not one, 0. Okay. The other thing is the Lizzie soap. That's a hobby business that she just got the certificate in case she wanted to sell some. Generally, when she sells the soap, I take it with me to work and sell it to people when I'm out and about. Anything else?
Well, I just have that, sorry, we're kind of jumping
Amanda.
on each other here. Amanda Cannon, 32 Downfall Road. So she also, I'm not sure why or what the reasoning back in May 30th, 2018. We have a letter from Sam Joslin of a denial for the operation of a dog daycare out of the property located at 35 Downfall Road. So
Yeah.
that's twice. Unfortunately, Jenny was denied a CHO. So this isn't the first time. This is the first, because then after that you went before for the first special permit, August 1st, 2018. There's also, I commend small business. We all shop at the Mini Mart. We all go to Rusty Can. We have no issue with small business. I commend, I'm a single mom of 2 girls. I commend a small business, especially run by a successful woman. I'm not going to say anything about that. That's towards my integrity, and that is not appropriate at all. I've had 3 incidences with traffic. Once at the time, I believe she was 5 years old, almost got hit by a car walking to the end of her driveway. I then had to contact Jenny. She never contacted me back. She apologized to me in front of the board at the special permit 6 months later, never once contacted me. 2 months ago, I believe it was, on a Saturday, we had an issue with the small red SUV driving super fast. We were outside playing. It was a Saturday. I have 3 children. I contacted Jenny's business line. Sorry, Jenny, I don't know what happened to your cell phone. I don't have it. That's why I call the business line. I Google it every time, and contacted that directly and got a phone call back 2 days later. And the business manager never once denied that it was the doggy daycare running on a Saturday. She understood. She apologized for the driving of fast of an employee. This is on a Saturday. driving fast of an employee and said that she would talk to the employee. She point blank did. Then last Thursday, we had another issue. Again, I'm not, it's not that, I've never had an issue with Jenny's driving. I
No.
personally never have. Jenny's driving, her brother's driving.
Nope.
I've genuinely never had problems. Her brother has a small car registered to New Hampshire. She has a blue small SUV. I've never had an issue with either one of them. But I don't, it's the employees. And again, I'm not saying that they're horrible people. We're not saying that they're horrible people. We're saying that the location of a commercial business should not be at the end of a dead end road that honestly probably should have like a speed limit of 15, because we have that hill. If any of you guys have driven over, it's a dangerous hill with the driveway right there. Point blank. That's all that I have nothing against small business or successful ladies. I promise. That's it.
Thank you. Sue, anybody else?
Well, we have, Jesse's spoken. I am going to take what's listed as Stephen Levesque. And we'll go back to you in a minute, Jesse. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can.
All right, thank you. How are you this evening?
We're getting there.
Good, thanks.
All right. All right, thank you very much. My name is Kathleen Levesque. I live at 103 Main Street in Byfield. I have worked for Jen for a number of years, from Main Street to Downfall Road. I am a self-employed housekeeper. I am one of those people that are probably bouncing up the road from 2 to 4 p.m. every Tuesday, which may not be the same time span as her employees. So surprise, surprise. You guys hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, so I am, I'm bouncing around at a different time slot. I've also worked for Jen as a residential housekeeper. So therefore, I am not part of her business. I have taken note, though, of Jen's ability to run a business. I've also taken note of Jen's ability to lay down the law. Her employees are told, these are the rules. These are what you do. If you don't do them, you're going to suffer the consequences. This is just what I have heard, okay? This is just me telling you, this is how Jen lays down the law. She's been wonderful about it. She really has, and I've been very impressed as a young woman watching her do this. I also respect growing up in Byfield all of my life. I have appreciated the fact of these little wonderful little roads that no one lived on for, few people lived on. It was just that wonderful little like haven that you could live on. I understand that. So having a business down there can be difficult, but Jen has obeyed the rules. She has. She also followed during COVID. She shut down because I was there. She still allowed me in, bless her, because I continued working in her private residence, not for her business, for her private residence. And it was amazing how she continued letting me work, but also made sure that her employees who are not there working were getting severance pay, taken care of, and they were shut down. They were shut down, and I can verify that. I can. And if you need to know that, I also work for some other people that if you need any type of validation on where I'm coming from, this is not BSing for Jen's benefit. I'm a validated housekeeper in the area, and I work for some very wonderful people in the area, and they would validate me also. I also want to say that I have gone up and down the roads going under the speed limit because I come from a family of first responders. My son is a police officer. My father was first lieutenant on the Byfield Fire Department. I work for the fire department also. We don't mess around with going speeding or anything like that. I have been yelled at also myself for going under the speed limit and looked at like I was a horrible person when I was going under the speed limit because maybe I was after the hours that Jen's business was supposed to be. But this was nothing to do with Jen's business. This was her residential house cleaning for her home, not her business. And that really offended me. And I'm from Byfield, and that really offended me. That really did. I just hope that people on that street understand that, yes, things happen like this, that we're not all on the same page, but that's very rude to do that. And that was something that offended me. And again, from being from a family of first responders, that extremely did. I also want to say that all in all, everything that I have seen Jen go through over the last 5 years at least, 3 years being there on downfall, but prior to that, working for her mother and grandmother on the property on Main Street, also cleaning there. She has done everything by the books. And no, nothing ever works out properly, does it? We're in COVID. Does anything really work out properly? No, it never does. But you know what? We do the best we can. We put our best foot forward. And if you're a good human being and do the right things, it should come back to you. It should. And I hope that everyone that's listening tonight knows that Jen does do that. Peace be with us all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else, Sue?
Yep, there's 2 more people.
Okay, let's hear them.
Jesse?
Hello. I wanted to apologize for getting heated. I was just upset for everybody blaming everything on her when I'm seeing it, down the whole street. I do know that the little red SUV that she's talking about is one of Jenny's friends. That's why she would be there on the weekend. They probably mistake me as a person because I am there all the time to take care of animals when Jenny's there, when she's not there. And I do work at a pretty large farm, and the amount of traffic that comes from the farm that I work at is insane. So if that was an agricultural place, I could only imagine the amount of traffic that would go there. I feel like 2 cars a day, possibly 4 going down the street 4 times is not that much. But if it was an agricultural site, I could definitely see a ton of traffic going there. And again, I do not work there, but I am there a lot. As I said, I do have animals there, and they're probably counting me on the weekends, but I am not an employee. That is it.
Thank you.
And
What about
Dory?
Sue?
Hi, I'm Dory Rosati. I am an employee of Jenny's, but also a friend of over 14 years and former resident of Downfall Road. I know Amanda Cannon had spoken about speaking to a staff member about a car on the weekend. That was me that she spoke with, and I just wanted to put on the record that I let her know that I would let Jenny know that a guest of hers had been driving and there were concerns. I never once said that was an employee. or that that employee would be spoken to. We do not have employees coming on the weekend. I do have a red SUV, so it could have been me, but I don't know that I was there that day. But I am often an employee that is cited as traveling to Jenny's residence on the weekends. Again, Jenny is my friend of over 14 years. You know, my son refers to her as Aunt Nini. We go over to play with Aunt Nini and her goats and walk our dogs on her 18 acres on an almost daily basis, and especially on weekends, because that's something that friends do and an activity that we participate in. So as far as business traffic, I know quite a few of those trips in the past have been attributed to things like myself coming in on weekends or holidays to visit with Jenny on our days off. But specifically the instance where Amanda Cannon had mentioned that it was that the office person that she spoke with said that it was a staff member driving. I recall that conversation, and very specifically, that was not a staff member. I don't know who it was that was at Jenny's house that day. She has lots of friends and family, as can be attested from everyone speaking on her behalf today, most of which have dogs. We tend to attract dog people. So it's likely that we all had dogs in our car anytime we are coming to visit Jenny. She's got a wonderful property for our dogs to come and hang out while we are, you know, roasting marshmallows around the campfire or enjoying some time outside this summer, since there's not much else to do with COVID. So beyond that, obviously I believe strongly in Jenny's business ethics, and obviously her just as a human being and a business owner, and in Seacoast Canine in general. I can speak to the way that our staff are coached, and you know, any concerns are immediately addressed, and there are consequences if there are any concerns that come up. But our staff have impeccable driving records. They follow the rules, they listen, they are, you know, responsible human beings. So that's my piece.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
That is it at the moment.
Hey, Howard, can I ask you a question to Jenny?
You have to unmute
I think
yourself,
Howard-
Howard.
okay. Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, hey, Jen.
Yes.
Just one question I wanted to ask you. What other things can you do to minimize the traffic or the situation that is presented here tonight? Is there anything you think you can do?
Yeah, I think, you know, sort of with this in mind, having our game plan moving forward, and part of this obviously was COVID related in terms of trying to be outdoors with our employees. But we have the space. I wouldn't be asking to downsize if we couldn't downsize. I think it's pretty obvious to everyone here that we are watched very carefully, and we aren't, no one is going to undercount our traffic trips. And so for us, you know, having our game plan moving forward it's pretty simple, but having the same, you know, a rotating schedule of 2 employees and myself and my brother. So it's a lot simpler of a plan, but we have the space in Salisbury to move that portion that, you know, we've had here in the past. And it does give me space to expand agriculturally, which has always been the plan. It's always been about phasing out the dogs and building up the agricultural side of things. I don't personally understand the animosity, because agriculturally we will continue, you know, once the dogs are gone, the traffic won't be gone. It will take a different form. But in this sense, you know, for us, we aren't there yet. And so to be able to keep 2 employees here with a reasonable number of dogs, because we can only, as you said, fit so many. We do have 12 crates in our Suburban. You guys are welcome to have a tour of our Suburban. but that is what we can fit. And so that is what we can have here. We did offer previously to have a camera set up on the property so that it's something that can be verified instead of being he said, she said all the time. But any of those things, you know, I think we took from the planning board, the hazard lights. We obviously aren't under the planning board's jurisdiction at this point. We haven't done the hazard lights since, but any of those things, our staff are remarkably willing to do things like that. So I think there are ways that we can reasonably verify what's going on without it sort of being a trust exercise when there is no trust. So at least on our part, obviously, logically, we have space for the dogs at our other location. I think we have an 18-acre farm. It's beautiful, and we want to continue using it in that vein because that is what we're passionate about. But we're certainly open to the board's suggestions in that regard as well.
Thank you.
Jenny, I just have a follow-up question from with Mario. You said that, I'm not sure who, but there was a suggestion about setting up cameras to verify traffic. Why did that never happen?
The planning board, or I guess it wasn't even the planning board. I think they were semi in favor. It was my suggestion because the Woodworths keep a camera on their mailbox, but it's halfway up the street. And so they have a tendency of thinking all cars that pass are business trips. And so I said, why wouldn't we put one in our driveway and give the town access to it? And I believe it was the attorney, although I have a terrible memory, who thought legally that was not acceptable because it would be like inside my house pointing out at the driveway. And I think that's pretty much where the discussion ended, but I would like something that's verifiable instead of a handwritten account of what they think is driving by.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Eric, do you have any comments or questions at this time?
No more questions, Mr. Chairman. There are
Okay.
comments, but no, or discussion, but no more questions.
Okay. Brian, you're still with us?
Yeah, he's still there.
Okay.
I am here. I was
Okay.
muted for a moment.
Yeah, a lot of things have been brought up tonight. I just want your opinion or view. Does a doggy daycare need a special permit in the town of Newberry?
So you just came right out and asked me, didn't you?
I did because, you know, I want the answer.
So prepare yourself to be disappointed. I can't give you that answer directly. So let me walk you through my perspective in terms of what the board might want to consider doing, you know, going forward now. So now you've heard the testimony from the appellant, from the applicant, you've heard public comment, and now you have to take a look at your zoning bylaw and decide what the answer is going to be. So you've got a couple of provisions of your zoning bylaw in play. You've got your table of uses. You also have 97-3, which is the reference to the table of uses, but it has some narrative there, some provisions that describe the table of uses before you get into the actual matrix. That's the table. And then you've got the customary home occupation provisions. So the board's job is to attempt to harmonize those in a way that makes sense with your experience and your knowledge of your community and your zoning bylaw. So the way that analysis starts is first, you look at it to see if there's a clear answer. You look at the plain language of the zoning bylaw and determine whether or not it speaks for itself, and you can answer it right then and there. Now, I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit and suggest that you're not going to find that answer. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this lengthy debate on it. You may see something I don't see, or you may see language that's more significant to you than I saw. But I believe I can safely say that there's some ambiguity there. So the board's role now is to look at that language, go through the factors. Counsel for the applicant, Attorney Timon, mentioned 5, although I'd actually suggest that you add a 6th, which is the customary part of it. And to look at those 6 factors and determine whether or not this use, as you've heard it described this evening at length, fits within that. And you've heard, some facts that are contested. So you have to decide, what in fact is the nature and character of the operation, and then whether or not it fits within the standard of the customary home occupation. The second prong of that, though, is that you're going to have to decide whether or not something that has an identified special permit attached to it is also an operation that can be allowable by right as a customary home occupation. So that's another prong. So that's an interpretive question. So the board is going to have to decide how to harmonize those two things in a way that makes sense. So there isn't an easy answer that I can just give you and tell you, this is the right way or this is the wrong way. It's really something that is squarely within the discretion of the board. I'm going to add one last point because, you're not the final stop on this. Your decision ultimately is appealable by an aggrieved party to a court. Now, a court's going to, if that happens, and I'm not saying it will, but if it were to happen, a court would look at the decision that comes out of this board's public hearing, which will be reduced to a written decision at some point. And it's first going to look at whether or not the board's decision was consistent, with the language of the zoning bylaw. Was it a clear error? Did the board just get it wrong, flatly wrong? Was it an error of law? And if it gets past that, it's going to look to whether or not the board's decision was a reasonable one. Can the language of the zoning bylaw and the facts as you found them reasonably support your decision? So that's a very deferential standard. So in the first instance, assuming that the board's judgment at the end of this case isn't a clear error and the court doesn't find that you just plainly got it wrong, then the court's going to defer to your reasonable exercise of discretion. And you might find that there are reasonable arguments on both sides and that there isn't one that is clearly correct and one that is clearly wrong. You might find that this is a fairly debatable, ambiguous issue, and you're going to have to apply your experience and your discretion to find out what's the right outcome for this hearing. And then the final point I'll leave you with is it is an appeal at the end of the day. And as Attorney Timon referenced earlier on in this, they have the burden of persuading you. So it takes a supermajority, in this case, a unanimous vote of the board to modify or overturn the building commissioner's order. So if all 3 members don't agree on that outcome, then the appeal fails just by operation of law. And the building commissioners, the zoning officials' determination will stand. So whichever outcome you do reach, it would need to be an outcome that all 3 members agree on. So you have the ability to affirm, the ability to reject, and the ability to modify. So you now stand in the shoes as the chief zoning official of the town. So you carry that power tonight, but you have to wield it through a unanimous vote.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to ask for a motion to continue if it's applicable with the applicant and the boards. We've had a lot of discussion tonight. There's a lot to take in, and I don't think we're going to be able to come to a conclusion tonight. So Eric, I see you want to speak. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just make a comment, and thank you, Mr. Winters, for your your guidance and clarity of how you went about it. And I would say, to add to that, that the burden, I would say, falls back on the applicant. And for the purposes of continuation, it seems the clarity in reading the zoning bylaws is the understanding of 97-3, which is the regulation of use districts, which then clearly states the restrictions, the table of use, and the specified applicable regulations. And that in those regulations, it talks about the table of use regulations. So if you do that, there is the term on page 3, down at the bottom, just under animal boarding, kennel, and 24-hour operations, which we understand that the applicant's business is not, but it says animal daycare, daytime only, special permit. So the argument to be had or understood for myself, and I would bring forth to the rest of the board, is how do we read or interpret the zoning bylaws to get from a section which clearly defines a use and clearly defines that it is a special permit, and then clearly defines that that special permit is one of the planning board, to then sidestep and submit for a CHO, in which it's then in the position of the building inspector to make a decision. Now, I think we've heard the argument, we can understand that. And I think the one thing that was lacking, I appreciate all the people speaking up. I appreciate everybody being respectful and being able to talk. I would ask that the precedence of the customary home occupation in terms of what is typical to Newbery would be an important, or the most important position to take in terms of understanding what that is. I would also then add that just, past precedent doesn't always serve or meet the intent. It helps to understand the zoning bylaws, but I'm looking for an interpretation that comes right out of the bylaws, and then I'm looking for precedent within the town in order to make the interpretation. Thank you.
Okay. Mario, any other comments before we? Make
No.
our motion?
I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Timon, are you people willing to continue to our November meeting?
Yes, I'm unmuted, and yes, we very much are agreeable to that. And to the extent that there's any, obviously I've heard and taken in some of the comments from the members, and so we perhaps will submit something that that seeks to address some of those points, including the interpretation of the table of uses and customary home occupation being allowed as of right, and how that relates to uses that require special permits. So, but to answer your question, yes, Chairman Tracer, we're more than happy to continue.
If we're going to submit material, please do it at least 10 days before the hearing date, so that we have time to review it, read it, and review it before the night of the meeting.
Sure.
Okay. So what was our date that we?
That would be November 19th.
Okay, so can we have a motion to continue to November 19th?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing until the next meeting on November 19th.
You have a second?
Second that.
Okay, Eric,
Yes.
Mario,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the meeting, I'm sorry, the hearing is continued to November 19th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
All right. So we have more. Whenever you're
We
ready.
do.
Whenever you're ready, Eric.
Yep. Public hearing. Joseph and Elizabeth Novak, 5 Withington Street. The applicant is requesting an administrative appeal variance for relief from section 97-6 of the Newberry zoning bylaws to extend an existing porch not meeting the street setback for the property located at 5 Withington Street, Newberry, Assessor's Map U06-0-63.
Okay. So are the applicants here?
Yep.
Good. Whenever you're ready, tell us
Sure.
why you're here.
So, like he said previously, we're looking to extend. We have a porch at the front of the house that has been there for like 40 years since Liz's father built the porch when he bought the house from her grandparents. And we're looking to extend that to the rest of the front. Looking to extend that along the entirety of the house, essentially to make a porch that continues to the side of the house where there is a equally as old previously existing porch from back when the house first changed hands to her father. And so this area is over by the old town hall and fire department, police department area of Newberry that is adjacent to Newburyport, where we kind of have the more Newburyport-esque house placement and house lots on a street. So as you can,
the house is built forward.
yeah, as you can see on our on the plot plan or the proposal plan, the house is located at the corner of the lot, which is already just the house itself, not including the porch that's been there well within the setback limit for the street facing side. And so going through for the building permit process, essentially
We don't want to extend any further towards the street. We just want to extend it further along the front of our house, so it can kind of just wrap around.
basically creating like a continuous area for the porch areas around the house. The building inspector, I believe there is deference in like the grandfathered of structures if nothing had changed position or was modified. And then in the zoning laws, there was another stipulation as for things that were pre-existing structures within setbacks. If you're not, I believe the words were significantly detrimental to the setback. I honestly can't remember the wording of it. But basically, if there was no massive changes to what the violation is for that, then your process would be going to the zoning board of appeals, which is where we are now.
Okay, so I understand what you want to do. The application is not real clear to me, partially because I'm finding it very hard to read the numbers.
It's probably my handwriting.
There's
Sorry.
nothing on the application that I see that gives us the setback as it exists now. Maybe Eric, you can read it better than I can.
Yeah, no, I had a hard time with the one-page site
Yeah.
plan, and if it was submitted at full size, it would be readable. Even with a magnifying glass, it seems a little hard, but I take it to be about 8.5 feet from the property line for the new.
And what is it for the old?
Well, to the old is, the dimensions are to the face of the house. So to scale to what is being said as a deck and stair is not is not dimensioned on the plan. It's to the corner of the house. Yeah.
So basically if you're looking at that plot plan, the large image,
it's 12 feet to the corner of the house. And that 12 feet goes to, I don't know, 5.8 feet. So it's a change of 12 feet to 5.8 feet is the two dimensions on the drawing.
Yeah, so at the corner of the house where there is no deck, currently, it's the 5.8 is essentially the additional portion past our pre-existing porch on the side of the house. And then when you go to the left-hand side with the pre-existing deck and stairs, I believe it was currently, I don't think there's any dimensions in the paperwork here, but it essentially extends like 7.5 feet out from the house in this kind of weird looking structure with, you can't see topographically, but there's essentially like a mound of earth there that is the reason the stairs are in this strange configuration when our father built it 40 years ago.
So, with what you provided on the application, I'm looking at now the front page or the second page of the application. So it says what's required for front setback, side back, rear setback, and what's proposed. But it doesn't say anywhere, or at least any place that I can find, what the existing is. And maybe Eric or Mario can find something that I can't find.
No, I didn't see anything either. It's all it has is that it's 6.5 feet front setback.
So, yes, Eric has another thought. We need more information to be able to determine exactly what you're asking for.
And Mr. Chairman, can we also ask that in the application, it does not seem to have the building inspector's rejection letter?
I have that letter that I can forward to Susan.
Could you just read the letter now, please?
Sure. Let me. It says, I've received your application to extend your front entry porch and create a farmer's porch the entire length of the front house. I'm denying your application per section 97.6B of the Newbery Bylaws, as a proposed project will intensify an existing nonconformance of your front setback requirements. In the next paragraph says, you may seek relief in the form of a finding from the Newberry Zoning Board of Appeals, and then his phone number.
Thank you.
I can pass that along to Susan.
We need that. And also, so what you just read, the application is for a variance or reversal of an administrative decision. The building inspector told you could come to us for a finding. Finding is much easier to get a favorable response than a variance.
Well, that's good to hear, but I think there's a but coming after that.
Well, no, there's not a but. If you read the last part of the building inspector's denial,
Mm-hmm.
read it again.
You may seek relief in the form of a finding from the Newberry Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, so you've come to us here for a variance. There's a big difference between the two. So I'm going to suggest to you, and the other members may have a different opinion, that you need to come back to us with a different application that's complete so that we can actually look at what you're trying to do and make a decision. Because what you've given us tonight, there's no way to determine what you're doing. Eric, you want to make it more specific?
Yes, I would take on your existing plan and dimension from the very most point of the steps to the property line.
Okay.
You have the building, but you don't have the steps, and you're making a finding, and your finding is basically that you're going to extend an existing non-conformance, but you're not going to exacerbate the condition. So you need to prove that you're not going over, you're staying within whatever limits are there. So if the surveyor or MEI could add that dimension on there, and then you have those dimensions on the new proposed plan, then one could see and prove out that you are staying within the existing nonconformity or you're extending beyond it. One is favorable, one is not.
Yes.
Okay.
Then, and we can consider it. If you extend it, it's very hard to do.
Okay.
Okay, and also please, when you submit some plans, make them so we can read them. In other words, besides having the right information, make it so we don't need a magnifying glass to try to determine what it is. So we'd appreciate that. So we're going to
It's also the paper.
continue
Yeah.
until November 19th, which is our next meeting. And I hope you took notes on what you need to do.
Yep. In terms of the finding itself, there's, unless I'm recalling incorrectly, is there no form for an application for a finding itself?
There is a separate application. It's for a special permit or finding. It's right on the
Oh, it's a
website.
special permit
Yeah.
one? Okay.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense. Then.
And I probably could have directed differently had I gotten the letter from the building inspector, but I didn't, so.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue the hearing until November 19th.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to extend this hearing to November 19th.
Second it.
Okay, Eric,
Yes.
Mario,
Yes.
I vote in favor also. So we're going to continue until November 19th. And please, if you have any questions, please contact Sue to make sure you have the right information.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So long for such a quick meeting.
Well, I promise we won't bring any people next week.
Okay. All right, good night. Thank you.
Have a nice night, guys.
Night.
Ready, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go right ahead, Eric.
Public hearing. Bowley and Edward Wenzel, 4 Riverfront. The applicant is requesting a variance for relief from section 97-6 of the Newberry zoning bylaws, as the proposed construction of a 25 by 25 garage will not meet the required setbacks for the property located at 4 Riverfront, Newberry, Mass, on Assessor's Map R11-0-62.
Okay, are the applicants here?
Yep, just getting them unmuted.
Okay.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay. Good
This
evening.
scares me.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Tell us why you're here, please.
Yes, we're looking to put an attached garage on our existing home at 4 Riverfront in Newberry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about standard size. I'm told about for 25 feet by 25 feet, 2-car garage. And we do have a letter that should be on file with our packet we sent in, getting a rejection letter from the building inspector because it didn't meet the front setback of 20 feet. And we are on a we are on a private road. We have an easement to get to our house, and we've thought about doing this for a while. We actually started the process last year. We went through the Conservation Commission, and that letter's on file in the packet too, to ask for a determination of applicability, because we had originally gone through the Conservation Commission to, to modify or rebuild our home back in 2002. And they gave us their okay, just specifying that we needed to have hay bales and things around because we are in the, is it the riparian or the wetlands area? And so they approved it from that perspective, but it's a question of, we have the 2 side setbacks. I put in an original map here from back when we had our well easement done. And then I did a hand done one. I hope you can read it well enough. And we had Everett Chandler, local surveyor, come in and make sure that our property line on the corner lot pin on the, what is it, the northeast corner, that it was exactly right. And then the one that goes along the right of way. And we came up with a little angled line there that shows where I have the dotted lines for the garage. It's only 7 feet setback on that corner, and on the other corner going toward the west, it's 8 feet. And we were supposed to have the 20-foot setback there, so we're asking for approximately an additional 13 feet in order to be able to put up a garage.
Okay, so why does it have to be in this location?
Well, we have originally, we had our septic system put in, and that takes up the whole side of the house where I have the diagram there that says southeast, north, and west.
Okay.
That whole area, that our side yard basically is our septic and leach field.
Okay, and there's you don't have it, but I understand what's there. What is the side setback there?
We actually asked for the side setback on the chart that I did. It shows a 10-foot setback, but back in 2002, we asked for a variance, and we got the okay on that for 7.5 feet for the house itself, because we were trying to build, on the existing foundation, if you will, at the time.
Right.
And so we received a favorable,
This is 10 feet.
yeah, we received a favorable on our appeal at that time to keep it at where it was existing at the time.
Right.
But they did make us move it back a little bit from the bank, because literally we're very close to the riverbank there. And so they made us move back about 5 or so feet, or if we had been able to stay right where we were, which probably might have been unsafe, it took away another 5 or so feet from what we would have from the frontage.
Okay, so I see the setback, the 10-foot setback or the 8.7 for the house.
Mhm.
What's the setback on the west side? There's nothing where your septic system is.
Yes.
So I'm asking you what the setback would be to the property line on that side. It's not on this diagram and it's not on the application.
There's another, from the corner of the house, I'd say it's about 30 more feet over there, but the leach field takes up 20 to 30 feet in that open area there.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know how much room there was on that side.
In front of the septic system.
Oh, probably there's a tree that I notated on the
Yeah.
corner there. The leach field probably comes right there. It's probably within 10 feet of that tree. It's a 20 by 30 foot area.
Okay. And on the application, is the lot size 21,000 feet?
Yes, but most of it's the marsh area.
The marsh area, the back of the house towards the river.
Yeah, toward the river, yes.
Okay. All right. So, you know that you have to prove a hardship to get a variance.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to prove that to us?
Well, I put, when we originally did it, what we had to do, we bought the original old cottage. I don't know if you're all familiar with that particular street there. We only rented the land.
Right.
Back in 96, I think it was, and then we were able to purchase the land in like 97 or 98. And at that time, they had the surveyors go through to map everything else. What we originally rented was like a 90 by 90 foot area. And then they came in and they, wonderfully, between about 40 different families in this area, we were all able to agree on, lines for, what part's your property and what's mine. And people made sure that the other folks there had, had enough so it would allow them to be able to put in things like septic. I think there were some lots that were so small, they wouldn't have complied. And so they allowed them to do that. So we, at the time that we originally put the house up was a little unexpected because we literally ran out of water. We had a water closet. It was only about 15 feet deep. And we needed to put a new well in. And they told us the only way we could do that was to tear down the original house. And then after, working with Mr. Barton, who originally owned all the properties, he allowed us to put an easement so that we could put our well across into the conservation area there. And so, so that's what we did at the time. And that's when we originally built, rebuilt the house in 2002, but we weren't expecting to do all of that back at that time. And so we were a little bit tight with money in that. Otherwise, we probably would have put a garage on at that time. And I suspect it might have been an easier process then, but we didn't do it. And now that we're both in our 70s and we're trying to, make sure we have coverage for the vehicles and that kind of thing. And so we, we're finally in a financial enough position to be able to, to add that garage on if it's possible.
Right.
Is there any space on the west side behind the septic system?
No, It,
Where's
it, what is it? No, but it kind of jogs. We're actually on a corner. If if you look at the diagram there.
Yep.
We're on a corner and it jogs in, and so there's just a little bit of a hill. It says top bank on that particular.
Yeah, I see
and
that.
then it just drops down and it starts to go right down toward the river, that area.
Okay.
So there really just isn't any other place on the property to be able to put it without it being partly on top of the septic system.
So,
Yeah, you can't do that.
No.
So- yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may. So Barry, you cannot drive off of the road and drive into the west side of your house. You're saying that there's a drop or grade difference there.
Yes, there's a very steep hill going down on the other side. So the minute you go past that, past that maple tree, you turn the corner and start to go straight down toward the landing, to where the Newbery landing is, where they let the boats out.
Yep. If, I guess I don't know if it's been done, but I guess you cannot build over the septic leaching field, but can you drive over the top of it?
They say you shouldn't, but I don't know.
I don't think so, Eric.
Yeah.
Right, so
And that's not a good idea.
understand, I'm just working through a couple concepts. If you drove to the side of the septic field and over your tanks and the garage was more positioned towards the back of the house and attached with a breezeway or something, could that suffice? It is a little bit more into your property, but I guess in terms of a variance, in terms of the Massachusetts zoning laws, general laws, Title 7, Chapter 40A, Section 10, the variance deals with a hardship or a condition or character of soil conditions of shape, of soil conditions of soil shape or topography of such land features that then would force you to, that we could grant a variance on the basis of those conditions. Otherwise, if your garage started obviously 20 feet from the road, from the property, you would also be able to do this by right. So it's either change the configuration of the garage, or in seeking a variance, one needs to prove the conditions, one of those three conditions of the general laws.
Can I ask a question on the zoning board of appeals? I was reading part of it. I'm not too familiar with what this means, but it says 97.6, note 2, it says no part of any building on lots in said district may stand less than 10 feet from a property line and less than 20 feet from a street unless the nearer building line is already established by existing buildings. And there's probably about 6, 7, 8 buildings out of 14 houses that are on the property, are on the right of way, or we submitted some pictures. If you look at some of those pictures, they're less than 2 feet from the road. One of those almost on the road. And so I was wondering what that means.
So I can appreciate the pictures and see exactly what you're saying in the pictures, but in the plan, in the lot plan you provided, you didn't show enough of the roads so that one could draw the line and put that all together.
If you're looking at the large map that I provided,
It shows the garage right on the line.
is this in reference to our property?
No, any property. It would be the Loving lot 60.
And so a building line would be established if you took two or adjacent properties or properties along the street and drew that line to determine what that quote nearer building line is
Uh,
by this plan, you can't see because my background, the plan that you have only shows 2 lots. So it doesn't show, if you were to show a site plan that had some of those structures that are in the photos, then I think a determination would be easier to understand.
If for the large map, I only provided one large scaled map done by Port Engineering back on 8/29/01.
I don't think we received a copy of it.
I provided that. That was
Yeah,
the,
you should have it, Eric.
I just gave one large map. I didn't make a copy of it for each person. Because, I only have a couple of these, but it's the large one.
Oh,
You
yeah,
have
yeah.
it
You
with
know
you?
what? That's my bad. She did provide it.
Uh,
There we go.
That's what we need.
And what that,
There's 6 or 7 houses out of the 14 that are within the,
they're 1 to 5 to 10
1 to
feet
10
off
feet
the,
the
So
road.
this is the Wenzel's right here.
yeah, but if you look at the, what do they call that? The locust map, the smaller
Yes.
one, it shows all the properties on the street on the opposite side. And it shows all the ones that we took the pictures of that we provided you.
Yeah.
So you can see that they're all right on the line on the river, on riverfront itself. There's 1, 2, 3.
Well, one was put on, a new one was put on 6, 7 years ago. now.
4.
Well, I think you would need to label all the pictures with their addresses so you could line them up to what was on the map here.
Or if, just as long as they're on the map, Susan, and pointed out that they're clearly identified on the map.
Yeah, and there was a new one that was on, a new building that was only done probably 10 years ago. That was probably 6 feet from the, I don't even think it's on this map.
And it's on a concrete slab foundation.
Oh, yeah, it's a permanent foundation.
It's a
building.
permanent foundation and it's not a shed,
Oh,
shed
it's a building, though.
sized.
It's a building.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't want to go by it, describe it. It says building, so they established the line. So-
Yeah, I mean, this plan here is like 19 years old, so.
I know we need a plan. I know we need a plan that shows what they're trying to prove as far as how close buildings are to the street. But from anecdotal knowledge of just driving on the street, I think they're correct, but I think we need a plan that verifies it. And also, I would like to see a lot plan where the septic system is so that we can determine there's no other place that they can put the garage. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, I do actually have that right here. I wish I'd included it with it.
Right, because for you to, you're gonna have to prove the hardship, but for you to prove it, you have to show us why there is a hardship. And
Okay.
not just, say, well, the septic system's there, the wetlands are behind us, and so this is the only place we can put it. We need to know, something documented to determine that.
Okay.
So, what else are we missing, Eric and Mario? I think we're missing on the application, the current and proposed setbacks.
Yeah, they have 20 in the minimum. Just looking, yeah, they have a,
So,
Is
So
that
no
on page
farm.
2A?
yes.
okay.
Okay.
So you need to show us the existing what your property setbacks are now. And you need to show us or tell us what your proposal is for the setbacks.
Show existing and then show proposed.
Right.
Yeah, so the first line would read exactly what comes off the map now, that you are, I don't know, 35, or if you're 20 and 8, then you're 28 feet back from the property line on your front setback is the first number. You're 7.5 on side A, which is the right side, and you're 61.8 feet on side B. And the rear, I guess you could just leave as NA. Then on proposed lots, you would then change the 28 feet because you're extending to 8. You would keep the 7.5 and the 61.8 for the side setbacks since they're not changing. And then the last line of the zoning ordinance that is not filled in would actually be 20, 10, 10, 10.
I'm sorry, this is page 2, 2A.
2A, yep.
Yeah, and it says existing lot, and I've got, I believe it's 21,315 for the lot size.
Yeah, you told us.
Keep sliding over.
But your
Okay.
frontage is only, your frontage is 56.24 feet.
I actually had a question about that because, you know, you see there's a jog because we're on the corner lot.
Yeah, it's not gonna, we just want to document what's on your drawing, and the number I'm taking off comes right off your plan. So, it's, you know, at the very top of your plot plan, which says lot 62, 21,315 square feet.
Oh, yes.
So at the very top of the page, you have a number which says 56.24 feet, and then it gives
Yes.
a means, a directional compass means of 61 feet, 31 inches, 39 seconds east.
Okay.
So that, I would just use that as the frontage, and we'll call it 56.24. That doesn't change. It's 56.24.
Okay, that's where I have frontage feet 120 now. I'm not
Yep.
sure why. Okay, so that would be, you'd say 56.24.
Yep.
And then the minimum, for the existing, I say the minimum lot setbacks are the 20, 10, 10 and not applicable.
No, for the existing lot lines,
It would be the 8, the 7, the 8.
well, if you're building a 25-foot structure and you have 7 feet to your lot line, 25 plus 7 is 32. So your front setback right now is 32 feet.
Yes, okay.
And your left side setback, if I use the rear property line and the dimensions you've provided on your plan, I take 104.97 feet and I minus 7.5 feet, I minus 35 feet 8, I come up with 61.8 feet for the side B setback. 61.8 for side B.
61.8 for side B, okay.
Yep.
32 for the front.
Yep.
And so what's side A? Side A is,
A would be, as you look at the plan, the right side of the property, and B would be the left side.
okay, left side. Right side,
The-
okay.
A is the side that faces the neighbors, the Fleming.
Okay, faces neighbors, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so that one is that would be 10 feet.
Your enlarged plan says it's, you just told us it was 7.5 and that it's 10 feet to the
the
garage.
actual house, right, got it.
the
Okay,
house.
7.5, okay. 7.5, yeah, okay.
So then on the proposed lot, the frontage is changed to 56.24.
56.24, yeah.
The minimum lot setbacks front goes to 7.
To 7, okay.
The side A is the same at 7.5.
7.5, yeah,
Side B is the same at 61.8.
1.8, okay.
Now, the zoning ordinance requirements for a lot, which you have not filled in,
Right,
it would be 40,000 square feet for the lot.
oh, okay,
It would be 20% for the lot coverage.
yeah.
No, Eric, there's no, they're not.
No, I know, but
So
just, fill-
that doesn't
Just
apply.
to fill it out properly.
yeah,
Yeah,
25 for the FAR and 35 feet for the height. I hear you, Howie.
Okay,
Pardon me?
I understand what you're saying. I was just trying to fill out all the blanks in the application.
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep,
And then
So-
frontage feet,
120 feet.
oh, 120.
125.
Oh, sorry, 125. Thank you,
25.
Susan.
Thank you, Susan. And minimum lot setback,
20
yeah,
on the front
20,
and
10,
then 10, 10, 10.
10, 10, 10, okay. And then what yeah, they have the existing building thing. So I need the sewer plan or the septic plan measurements showing that it takes up that side of the house.
Yes,
And
It
And-
wouldn't hurt to have a photograph standing in the street, looking at your house to the left, looking over the septic leaching field and showing the slope conditions of the jog and the road at that side of the property.
okay, photo on wall. Showing septic and the slope down. Okay. And as far as the port plan, a lot of the homes are still the same as they were in the one that I provided. So would you just want something that specifies which house numbers those are? And which outbuildings are still right there by the road?
I think that would be suffice.
Okay. So. Show current outbuildings. Okay. On the map, okay. Okay.
Okay, so can I ask you if you'd like to continue until next month on November 19th?
Okay,
If you agree to that, we'll make a motion and go forward with it.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for their input. It was very helpful.
Very helpful.
Really appreciate it.
thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue this hearing to November 19th.
Second,
No. Eric,
Yes.
okay, Mario,
yes.
and I vote in favor also. So we'll continue until November 19th. And if you can bring in everything that Eric's outlined, we should be able to make a decision.
If you
All
have
right.
any questions, Sue, you can give him my number and my email. I'll be happy to help.
Oh, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
And who is that, Mario?
Eric.
Eric.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
So do we have any other business?
No.
Okay. Hopefully we can get a motion.
So you
to
guys are all
adjourn.
set. If you want to make sure you get stuff to me at least 10 days prior to the meeting, so
Okay,
I can make sure the board gets it for review.
yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
night.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing else. I'd like to adjourn if we have a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Eric,
Yes, please.
Mario,
yes, please.
and I vote in favor also. All right, it's
Alrighty.
been a long night.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Good night,
Sue.
everybody.
See
Good
ya.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye now.
Good night.